In two of my recent videos, I showed the advantages and disadvantages of running standalone Elastic agents and manually managing their agent policies. In this video, I want to introduce a fleet server as a way to simplify the management of Elastic agents and their agent policies. For some of you who follow my channel, you know I made a video series on APM. And in that series, I showed how to set up fleet servers because they were needed for application performance monitoring. But in this video, I will do two things differently from the fleet server setup of the APM series. The first difference is that I will use self-signed certificates instead of public certificates for our fleet servers, since much of the Elastic documentation is based on it. If you want to use public certificates, then it's a matter of ignoring and omitting a few steps from this video. I will leave visual notes in the video for the things you can ignore when using public certificates. Or even better, you can just watch my APM video which shows how to set up fleet servers with public certificates. If you want to use self-signed certificates, then you will need certificate authority files, which I had prepared in my previous video on setting up Elastic and Kibana. The second difference is that I will show how to set up a separate Elastic agent with an agent policy that has at least one integration. For the integration, I will install Nginx web server to one of my Linux machines. Then I will have the Elastic agent ingest metrics from Nginx and submit the data to our fleet server. And then we can review some of the metrics in our dashboards and visualizations. Before we get started, you will need an instance of Elasticsearch and Kibana. I already have mine set up here, which you can see on my computer screen. If you need instructions on how to do this, I will leave a link in the description of this video to the previous video which shows you how to do this. If anyone has questions after watching this video, you can leave a comment below or email us through our website. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and configure our fleet server. So I'm going to click on the menu, click on the fleet. Let's go to settings. And the first thing we need to do is have our fleet server output things to Elasticsearch, which means we're going to have to update the connection details to our Elasticsearch instance. I'll click on edit. For the name, I'll use default. For the type, we're going to use Elasticsearch. In the future, I'll talk about Logstash as the output. But for now, our fleet server will communicate directly with Elasticsearch. Here, let's update the URL to our Elasticsearch instance. I'm going to avoid the Elasticsearch CA trusted fingerprint, but I will reference the certificate authorities here in the advanced YAML configuration. So let me open up the terminal window to my fleet server again, and I'm going to make a new directory in etc cert, and then inside the cert, I'll make a directory called elastic.evermite.net. Elastic.evermite.net. And in here, I'm going to copy over the public root certificate authority from the Elastic server. So it was Elasticsearch, and then it was the cert elastic.evermite.net. And I will, actually, it was just CA dot cert. And let's move it here. Great. So with that done, let's come back to our window here. And now I'll paste in this option and let's type in the path to our certificate authority, which is this. And then the ca.cert. So now the fleet server should be able to trust the self-signed certificate of elastic.evermite.net because it has the full SSL chain for it to verify, right up to the public root certificate here. So I'll go ahead and press save and apply settings. Now we can set up our fleet server. I'm going to click on this Add Fleet Server button, and I'll click on the Advanced tab. To create a fleet server, we will need to put an Elastic agent on our fleet.evermite.net Ubuntu machine. The Elastic agent will actually be responsible for installing, configuring, and running the Fleet server. So if you've seen my earlier video on standalone Elastic agents, you can basically think of a Fleet server as another integration. And this means that the Elastic agent normally needs an Elastic agent YAML file to specify how the Fleet server should communicate with Elasticsearch. And if you remember, the YAML file basically is the same as an agent policy. And configuring this policy by hand is not very practical. So here, Kibana can create the details of an agent policy for us. And then the Elastic Stack will automatically push the correct configuration to our Elastic agent without us ever needing to work with the Elastic agent YAML files. So I'm going to go ahead and press create policy, and that policy will be called Fleet Server Policy 1. Okay, it took about 30 seconds or so, but the policy has been created. And I'll select production. And we're going to specify the name of our Fleet server as well as the URL. We're going to use the default port of 8220. I have tried to use some other ports, but I've had some issues before. And if anyone has ever gotten things to work on other ports, do give us some information in the comments. That will really help us out. So I'll press add host. All right, so moving on, let's generate a service token. And so the token has been made, and it's actually been placed into this command over here as well. To complete the installation of the Fleet server, we're going to need to run this command on the fleets.evermind.net Ubuntu server. So I'm going to come back here, and I'll go to the home directory. And I'm going to paste the command in here because we need to make a few edits. Let me just make this window a little bit bigger so it's a little bit easier to see. So let's take a look at these commands. The first three commands just downloads the Elastic agent and it unzips it. The final command actually installs the Elastic agent. And you can see that there are a lot of options that go with the installation command. So let's just look at each of these options. I already mentioned that this is the service token that's used to enroll this agent. The URL flag gives the address of our Fleet server. Notice that I mentioned HTTPS, which means I will need to generate SSL certificates for fleet.evermind.net and then populate these options. So I will do that in a bit. We also need to tell the Elastic agent the location of our Elasticsearch server, which means I also need to reference the certificate authority for elastic.evermind.net. And because I already have the public ca.cert file on this server, let's just go ahead and populate this. So I think it was etc certs elastic.evermind.net/ca.crt. And let me just double check. Tab. Yep, so that's the correct file path. So let's go ahead and make the SSL certificates for fleet.evermind.net. And to do this, I need to be back on the Elasticsearch server and go to the USR share Elasticsearch binary directory. And the process will be exactly the same as when we created the certificates for elastic.evermind.net and kibana.evermind.net. Except this time I will save the file to fleet.zip, and I will name this certificate Fleet, and we're going to sign it with the certificate authority. This is our public key, and then I think it's the private key for the certificate authority. And the domain name that we're making this certificate for is fleet.evermind.net. And again, if we're using IP addresses, I could just do it like this, but we're not. So I'm just going to delete this and just type PEM to save the private key in PEM format. All right, that should be good. Let's just unzip this. All right, so we've got our certificates for fleet.evermite.net now. So all we have to do is just move these certificates over to the Fleet server. So I'm gonna make some new directories. Let's go back to our certs directory and we'll add a new directory here, fleet.evermite.net. And I'm gonna copy over the certificates from the Elastic server over to here. Okay, wait, what happened? Okay, just a typing mistake. So I'm going to change the path to this. And now we should have our Fleet server's certificates. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to our install.sh file because now we can actually type in the path to our fleet.evermite.net certificates. But first, let's type in the path to the certificate authority that was used to sign fleet.evermite.net, which is the same as elastic.evermite.net. So that means I can just take this line here and paste it into here. All right, and now we can type in the path to our Fleet server certificates. So this will be to our public key. So fleet.evermite.net/fleet.crt, and this will be the private key. So this becomes fleet.key, and just change this directory to fleet.evermite.net. And I think that should be good. We can run this script to install the Elastic agent. So let me just change the permission, and I'm just going to run this. Yes, to install this Elastic agent. All right, looks like everything is successful. Let's just check in Kibana. So if I hit refresh, and now we can see that we have a healthy Fleet server up and running. So let's test our Fleet server by having another Elastic agent stream data to it. What I will do is install an Nginx web server on one of my servers. Then I will install an Elastic agent on the same server. The Elastic agent will consume Nginx metrics and stream it over to our Fleet server. Just to avoid setting up a completely new server, I will install Nginx to the same server as Kibana and serve an Nginx website on port 80. So let's go over to the terminal window of my Kibana server. And I'm going to install Nginx web server. Okay, so Nginx should automatically be up and running. If I go to my web browser and go to the Kibana URL, but just leave it at the default port 80. And there we go. We can see the Nginx default website. So next, let's set up an Elastic agent to consume our Nginx data. And to do this, I'm going to head over to the integrations area. And once this loads, I'm going to search for Nginx. And then I'm going to add this Nginx integration. Now for all these settings, I'll just leave them as default. You can always change them later. I'm not going to add this integration to our Fleet server policy. Instead, I'm going to set up a new policy for this Nginx integration. And in the future, I could potentially add more integrations to this new agent policy. Okay, it looks like the policy is set up now. And I just need to find the instructions on how to install an Elastic agent with this policy. Oh, okay, so I just clicked on Add Agent, and it should be this command right here. So I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it into this terminal window as a shell file, because I need to make some edits to it. All right, so these instructions are download the agent, unzip it, go into the Elastic directory, and finally install the Elastic agent. I'm just going to format this command a little bit better because we're going to need to make some edits to it. Specifically, because we're using self-signed certificates, we're going to need to pass along the public key of our certificate authorities. So we'll start with the CA for the elastic.evermind.net, and it's going to be in the etc cabana certs elastic.evermind.net/ca.crt. Actually, let me just double check that. Cabana tab. Yeah, okay, so that's the right file path. And we are also going to need the certificate authority for the fleet server or fleet.evermind.net. All right, so I think that should be good. Now let's just go ahead and install the agent. So I'll say yes to this. Okay, it looks like the agent has been installed. Now, if I go back to the web browser, great, one agent has been enrolled. And here on the screen, I can see a healthy Elastic agent. I waited a few seconds and our new agent became unhealthy. So I'm going to click around to see why. So I'm going to click to the logs. Okay, so nothing's showing up in the logs or diagnostics. Yeah, there's nothing. So we're going to have to dig a bit deeper. I'm going to go to the server with our Elastic agent, and let's actually go into the opt directory, Elastic agent directory, and then let's go into the data directory because we're going to find the logs to our Elastic agent in here. So just go into logs directory here, and one of these files is basically our logs. All right, so I see an error for Nginx, but that's not related to what we're seeing. Okay, so here's the error. I've seen this before. So the Elastic agent can't seem to find our certificate authority's public key, even though we specified where to find it in our install script command. Let me just flip back to our install agent command to be sure. Yes, we said that the ca.cert should be here, but instead we are seeing this in our error logs. The only place where we specified the etc certs elastic evermind.net ca cert path was in our fleet server settings, all the way back on this screen over here. So I'm not sure why our install options for the CA file are ignored, but I have a workaround. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the directory for the etc certs elastic.evermind.net, and I'm just going to copy over the CA cert files here. All right, and now I'm just going to uninstall the Elastic agent because I'm going to try to reinstall it. Okay, let's go back to our install script. I don't need to re-download the agent. All I need to do is just run the install command. Yes. All right, our agent should have been installed. And now if I go to our browser and hit refresh, and now we can see our new agent, which is healthy. I'm just going to delete this old unhealthy one. All right, so let's see if the Elastic agent is streaming data to our server. I'm just going to look at some of the Nginx dashboards. So if I go to assets here, and I'll click on this one. Okay, so one of the graphs is being populated. Maybe these other ones take a little bit more time. Let's take a look at the other dashboards. All right, so this one's got data. So this is looking good. And it also looks like the Elastic Agent is streaming data for this dashboard as well. So that's all there is to managing Elastic Agents and agent policies with Fleet servers. If we installed more services on the server with Kibana and Nginx, we could add more integrations to our agent policy 1. For example, if we install Apache on the server that already has Kibana and Nginx, then we can come to this integrations page. And then we can click on Apache, add Apache, then just add this integration to our agent policy 1. And then the Elastic Agent will automatically ingest Apache metrics along with the previous Nginx metrics without us needing to do anything via command line or SSH. The Fleet server will automatically push the correct policy to the enrolled Elastic Agent. So hopefully you can see how Fleet servers can make it easier for you to manage a lot of integrations, policies, and agents. So at this point, I think I'll just wrap up. If there's anything that's unclear, you can leave a comment below or email us through our website. So we hope to see you in the next video.